Madonna. Yeah, only the best music here on the Gascony Show, the show for the Gascony region. I have great pleasure in telling you that with me in the studio tonight, like I mentioned earlier, is a very special person. Nigel Leaf Fielding was one of the drug dealers jailed as a result of the famous 1977 drug cartel bust in the UK called Operation Julie. Leaf's journey, written in his own words, from his early days and his first experience with LSD, to his falling from grace and long sentence in the nick for conspiracy to deal LSD, has just recently been published. Leaf Fielding, welcome to the Gascony Show.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for coming in. First off, I'd like to say that I've read your new book, To Live Outside the Law, and as I said to you earlier in the week, it is nothing short of genius. It is a riveting and captivating read for me, certainly from start to finish. Now, you start your story on March 26th, 1977, when you and your wife, Mary, are woken up in bed by police under the direction of Operation Julie. This must have really been, it must have felt like the beginning of the end for you.
First of all, John, thank you for such a positive statement about the book. It's really amazing. Thank you.
Indeed.
Yes, waking up to discover I'd been captured was, well, frankly, was one of the worst moments of my life. And then it gradually dawned on me that the life I'd been living was over, forever.
Wow.
It wasn't the beginning of the end so much as the end of that stage of my life.
The police were there, and that was it. Nabbed. Well, let me read to you and our listeners what Wikipedia claims about Operation Julie. Operation Julie was a UK police investigation into the production of LSD by two drug rings during the mid-1970s. And the operation, involving 11 police forces and over 2.5 year period, resulted in the breakup of one of the largest LSD manufacturing operations in the world. It culminated in 1977 with enough LSD to make 6.5 million tabs, with a street value of £6.9 million sterling being seized. 120 people were arrested in the UK and France, and over 800,000 sterling discovered in Swiss bank accounts. It must have given you, Leaf, some kickback then, and I'm sure it must still give you a thrill even today, even after having paid the price through years of prison, to have been part of this enormous operation.
Well, John, getting arrested certainly did not give me a kick, except perhaps a kick in the nuts. But looked at from today's perspective, yes, it's true. There is, I don't know if kick's quite the right word, but I do appreciate, I know that I've taken part in momentous events and that have a place in history, whatever strange place that is, or it turns out to be.
That's fantastic. Of course, your story really starts with your childhood. I mean, from your book, it was blighted by tragedy, lest I say, and emotional neglect, right?
That's right, yes. The first 6 years of my life were great. It's really important to get a good start, I think. I knew that I was secure and I was loved. And then my mother died in a car crash, and my father was very badly injured also. So my little sister went to live with an aunt, and my brother and I were sent to boarding school. And we stayed with our grandmother in the holidays. My dad, after he recovered, he was in the army and he wasn't able to look after us and work. Mm-hmm. So that went on for about 6 years, I think. And we became a family again after my dad remarried in the early 60s.
Now, you weren't very chuffed with his new wife, were you?
No, we weren't a happy family at all. As time went by, through my life, I came to realize that my stepmother was a really screwed up woman. But at the time, we just thought she was horrible.
I see. Yeah.
Kids don't weigh things up the way you can do later.
Yeah.
But much later in life, I became a step-parent myself. So now I've seen the relationship from both sides, and it is a difficult role to be a step-parent.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it doesn't alter the fact that my stepmother made a real mess of our family.
She made your youth hell, really, did she? Or
Well, we were away at school, my brother and I, most of the time, and
which is also a fascinating part of your book.
That's another story. So we escaped the brunt of it. My sister suffered because she was at home.
Uh-huh.
She suffered more, and also we were older.
Mhm.
But it wasn't, going home was like going from one kind of jail, boarding school, to another kind of jail.
So you were getting geared up for jail, really, at a very early stage.
Lots of practice.
Now you went to university in Reading. Your university days there. That's where you first encountered LSD, and was what transformed your life, really, wasn't it?
That's right. Transformed is the word.
Uh-huh.
It was in the summer of love, 1967.
What better year? Mid-60s, huh?
Yes. Well, we knew, there were no drugs around. I better set a bit of background. There were no drugs around in Reading at the time, other than amphetamines. There were a few mods, pill poppers in the town, but and we understood that some Jamaicans who smoked ganja, but on the campus there weren't any drugs, and then things were happening. There was the hippies in San Francisco, and London was starting to swing, and we kept hearing rumours about drugs, and we were really curious, and we tried to chase the rumours down to their source, and we never got anywhere. And then we noticed that the people upstairs were acting very strangely, but they seemed to be having a great time, so we thought, they must be smoking that grass. So
you went to check it out.
we went upstairs to try to score a bit of dope, and they said, no, we haven't got any. We got some LSD, but that'd be too strong for you. So without knowing what I was saying, I said, well, no, it wouldn't. They gave me this, my friend and I, they gave us 2 sugar cubes, and we gave them a Hendrix album in return. And
who got the better part of that deal, I wonder?
Well, at the time, or immediately afterwards, there was no doubt in my mind that we had the best part of that deal, because we could still Hendrix, they played it really loud.
Oh, I see.
But right now, I wouldn't mind having that old Hendrix album.
Is that right? You'd give a couple of sugar lumps for it, would you?
If I still had them, yes.
And what age were you, if you don't mind me asking? What age were you when you...
I was 18.
You were 18.
That was my first drug experience, and in one day it totally transformed
It blew
my
your
life.
mind completely, yeah.
Forever.
Forever.
Yeah, I was on a different course from that day.
Isn't that amazing?
Extraordinary, yes.
Yeah. Now then came what by all accounts was your resolute decision to drop out in the late 60s, which meant a lot of travel for you. And then, of course, ultimately this lifestyle led to your involvement with your, for want of a better word, co-conspirators and your creation of the LSD distribution network.
Well, John, you covered an awful lot of ground with just a few words there. But, it's just
you could tell I did my homework.
Yes, I dropped out and joined the hippies. That was in one day.
And you travelled.
Yes, I quit university.
You quit. You literally dropped out of that as well.
Yes, I did. And we, my pal and I, we asked the people upstairs, where can we get some more of this? Everyone should try this. And we got hold of a bottle and started handing it out to our friends.
All right, and that was the beginning of the...
That was the beginning,
the distribution network as we know it.
And then soon after that, I started travelling. That's right.
And that was a big change in your life. Nothing was the same after that. You say it hashed your life. It's one of the words I see you've used. Yeah, it was a hash of your life.
Oh well, that was my dad's opinion.
Oh, I see. You didn't have the short back and sides haircut and wearing a uniform then.
No. He thought I'd gone totally to pot.
Is that right? Yeah. Now the world was a complete. Of course, it was. Let's put it in perspective for our listeners here. The world was a very different place back then.
Yeah, it certainly was.
You travelled. You travelled all over Europe and hung out in places like Turkey, places you mightn't hang out today as a white man, I suppose, in Turkey, Morocco, and the Far East. And And it was well, it was a time when people didn't care very much about crime or lock their cars or even their houses, and mass media wasn't really there yet. And so you schmoozed around the world with virtually no money, selling drugs to stay alive. That must have been an incredible time.
It was an extraordinary time. You've cut it a bit short, really. To start with, it was much more innocent, the beginning of my travels. The first travel I went on my own, and actually had £3 10 shillings when I landed in France. And
well, to put that in perspective, in today's money, that would be about...
I don't know, maybe 20 quid or something.
Oh, I see.
Well, to put it in perspective, the fare was £2 10 shillings, the cross-channel fare, and I hadn't bought a return ticket. So if I kept £2 10 shillings for the return, I had a quid to spend. And I ran out of money very quickly. And I discovered the extraordinary generosity of people. Amazing, really, and it seemed like the poorer the people, the more generous they were, the more prepared to share the little they had with someone who'd wandered into their lives and they'd never see again.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. The poorer, the more generous.
Yes, I mean, I think most people are generous, unless they've got great wealth to protect, and then it's a different story.
Now, you maintain that even though LSD became an illegal substance, you never meant any harm to anyone when you manufactured it and sold it. In fact, at one stage, I read you firmly believed that LSD would save the world. So really, you were, idealistic, a dope smoker, a guy who wanted to turn the rest of the world on. Do you still believe this?
Well, just to start with the beginning of your question. Yes, I absolutely believed that from that first trip. I was on a mission. As I told you, we got hold of a bottle of acid and we started to turn our friends on. I wanted to turn the whole world on. I wanted to bring us back from the brink of nuclear war, because this was the shadow that hung over our society in those days.
Oh, of course,
It was a very open and innocent society. There weren't crime waves and things, but we had the bomb. We lived with the threat of the bomb and annihilation. And I thought, acid had such an incredible effect on me. I thought, if we can get this to everybody, this will transform the world. We'll realise that fundamentally we're all the same. We don't have to fight. We don't have to blow each other to pieces. So I was on a mission.
Fantastic.
But you ended by saying, do I still believe this?
Well, at this point, yeah.
It's now 44 years after my first trip.
Mm-hmm.
And do I still believe that LSD can save the world? Well, no, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Of course I don't. I was
You can
naive.
tell me later whether you really do or not.
I was naive to think that
Sure.
any pill could solve all humanity's problems. But remember, I was only 18.
Yeah.
I was naive.
And on your first trip.
That's right. Yeah.
Why don't we stop there for a little song, and we'll come right back, folks, to our interview here with the very interesting, very entertaining Leaf Fielding. So here we have Rihanna, California King Bed. Hi, so only the best music here on the Gascony Show. And I'm speaking here tonight with my guest, Leaf Fielding. Leaf was one of the drug dealers jailed as a result of the famous 1977 drug cartel bust in the UK called Operation Julie. Now, Leaf, for a long time you thought that if everybody dropped acid, all the bad stuff in the world would stop. And I remember on page 267 of your book, you state that, and I quote, and this is the crux. The chemicals can let you see the possibilities, but it's up to you to realize them. Now, do you still believe that people should take LSD to expand their consciousness, if only for a while, so as to know what it is they can do, in fact, or what they can realize?
Well, I no longer think that it's for me to recommend to people what they should do. Mm-hmm. What I do think is that we should all be free to do what we want, provided, of course, that we don't hurt anyone in the process.
I share that view. I'm a bit of a libertarian myself.
So, do what we want and be prepared to accept the consequences of our actions.
Very good, very good. And I think that's a great lesson for our listeners. Do what you want, folks. so long as you're prepared to take the consequences. Now, one comment as I researched a little bit before this interview, one comment that I saw on the BBC website was from a chap called Peter Sim, and he said, idealists, this is his quote, this is what he said about you guys, idealists wanting to improve society and making millions poured into offshore bank accounts. Anyone else see a slight contradiction? These guys weren't some old lady growing a bit of cannabis to help her arthritis pains, unquote. After having lived below the breadline, lLeaf, for most of your life, surely the money must have been a big attraction. Did you make a lot of money from LSD, more than, say, from your interest in your fledgling Reading Whole Foods?
Well, first of all, the BBC comment is a fair enough observation. There is a contradiction. But I think it's worth making a couple of points. Our conspiracy ran for around 8 years, and a lot can happen in 8 years, and a lot did.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, there was no question that we were idealists. We wanted to turn the world on. We believed in what we were doing, all of us. And we began in a very small way, and we were quite disorganized and very light-hearted. In a way, we were thumbing our nose at society or at the authorities, because we're still young. I'm not a teenager anymore at this point, but in my early 20s. And as time went on, the operation grew in size, and inevitably we were affected by the stress of having an illegal life, because that's what it amounted to. You can't be unaffected by your lifestyle. You do what you want, and you take the consequences. And one of the consequences was paranoia. It became part of our lives. And the organisation just kept getting bigger and bigger. More and more people wanted the stuff that we were making. You know, I would quickly say that our LSD was the purest LSD that had ever been made anywhere in the world, purer than the Sandoz laboratories, where Hoffman first synthesized LSD in 1938.
That's your claim to fame. Pure stuff.
Not mine. I wasn't the chemist, but I have to say the chemist was a genius. This stuff was unbelievably pure. Sorry, I've got a bit off the...
No, that's all right. Yeah.
Anyway, with the paranoia and the wear and tear, I suppose that I came to feel that the money I was making was justified by the risks I was running. That this is how I thought of it at the time. I was trying to turn people on, and as a result of that, I could get locked up, and so it was fair enough to make some money out of it.
So
this is a long way away from the innocent way that we started.
It wasn't the opposite then, that you were taking these risks so as to make the money, as Peter Sim would have you?
No, personally, I didn't make a lot of money from it, and money was never my principal motivation. But it's true that the people at the top of the organisation, especially in the last year when things just got massive, they were making money. The money just kept rolling in, and Swiss bank accounts were opened and money was put in them, but not millions. There was never even 1 million in all the Swiss bank accounts. I didn't get rich from my acid activities. I worked it out later. My brother is an army officer, and talking to him, and I worked out that he made more money as an army officer than I made as an acid dealer.
We have to talk to your politicians, though. They're paying those army officers far too much.
No, the army aren't incredibly well paid. I was risking my liberty, but my brother was prepared to risk his life.
Yes, I see what you mean. Put me in perspective.
Yeah.
Now, your book. Let's get to your book. Your book has been described as a fascinating record of a precious, distant time, and Operation Julie seems to have represented the final death throes of the 1960s counterculture, conclusively shattering the idealism with which you and many others once viewed the drug scene. Was this the end of the 60s love and drugs, the true hippie movement, and the beginning of a more harsh and more brutal era for the narcotics underworld, would you say, lLeaf?
I think it probably was. A lot of people have said this to me, but you must remember that I was in prison, and I was in prison for a long time, and so in no position to monitor what was happening in the counterculture. But certainly when I came out into a vastly changed world.
I can
It was
imagine,
a different
yeah.
place.
Gone were the hippie days, huh?
Gone with the hippie days. It was
was-
Thatcherism.
It was business then. Business, even in the drug scene.
Oh yeah, apparently it was.
Now, a lot of, speaking of your time in prison, a lot of prison time was dished out to all of the 15 defendants in the Operation Julie trial. Some 120 years in total. How many years did you get, and how many did you serve?
I got 8 years, and I served 5, just under 5.
Wasn't too bad, really. Well,
Try it, John, and tell me if
no,
you...
I've read your descriptions of it in your book, and I don't think I want to
5
go
years is
there.
quite a long time. You know, if you look back and you think, gosh, that's 5 years ago, it doesn't seem like anything.
Yeah.
But if you think that you're going to prison now and you won't be out until 2016,
Oh, yeah. Ouch.
it's a long time.
Yeah, I can imagine. And now you write about prison life quite extensively, as we were saying in your book. Can you tell us about a few of the more interesting incidents for our listeners here on the radio?
Well, you have a different perspective on life if you've got to spend a long time in prison. You learn to make long-term plans for a start. You haven't got much to do, but you can sit in your cell and plan.
Uh-huh.
And I did. There was one job in the Nick that I really wanted. I saw that right from the start, and I got that job. But it took me 3 years. 3 years of angling.
You were almost
positioning
parolable
myself.
at that stage, no?
I would have been parolable, but at that point I'd already had my first parole refusal.
Uh-huh. 3 years for a job.
So the job I wanted was to be a gardener.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the only job where you could be outside all day. And
Ah,
there were
I see.
only 3 gardeners in a prison population of, I'm not sure actually, 700 or 800,
Uh-huh.
something like that.
Right.
Only 3 gardeners. But it was a wonderful job. I was outside, and most days there was a screw in charge of the garden party, and most day he took some of the short-termers outside to